All right, welcome back to the party again. Here we go. So, again, we are going to be working on Risk Register today. This is going to be part 4 for building the Risk Register. We're going to go through and do more of the likelihood and impact ratings. And then we're also going to go through and list out maybe some of the recommendations or otherwise as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go through our intro to begin with. So we're all here for a shared mission to break down barriers, fostering collaboration in community, working towards a more secure future. We're all here to learn and grow. Our new schedule, Mondays and Tuesdays, we are going through and doing the hands-on labs. So this is the second day for our hands-on. Tomorrow we will be having the GRC Let's Get Technical at this time. And one of the exciting things about tomorrow as well is we have an additional special stream scheduled for tomorrow night. We do also have Cynical High Trust on Thursday night as well, which is our primary meeting. And then Fridays are just a AMA open stage. Now, if you do come up on stage, and even if you guys just want to hang out and chat, that's fine too. But I want you guys to realize that if you guys do come up, turn on your mic. You do not have to turn on your video. Ask questions, whether you're in chat or you come up on stage. And then also I'm going to drop the link for our Discord. That's going to be the best place to go to drop your personal LinkedIn. So we have a live chat channel, which is going to be, if you drop your social profiles there, then it'll go ahead and actually send it to all of the platforms that we're streaming to. And then even if you have a question or want to share something that's not even related to what we're talking about, that's perfectly fine too. Worst case scenario, we'll circle back around to that. All right, let's see here. Don't forget to check out our website, so studygrc.org. And then also there's a couple cool people that I'm dropping in chat as well. So such as Simply Cyber, that does a daily cyber threat briefing. They have the Academy. And then they also have like firesides on Thursday and other stuff as well. There's also PBO. So PBO streams, that's actually tonight as well. So tonight, I believe it's 9 p.m. Eastern. PBO will be streaming on his channel, which is in chat there, regarding the 853 family groups. And then he's talking about like doing labs coming up and so forth as well. So definitely looking forward to that. All right, now let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we were already working on this. Let me go ahead and move this up. All right. So to recap just a little bit, so today is part 4. And we're doing 8 different parts to this risk register section. And part 1, we built out the actual template itself. And then 2 and 3, we were just adding more to it and doing like the impact ratings for it. And today we're just going to go ahead and continue along the process. I want to get some more of those other columns filled out, such as like the risk response strategy and actions required. So everything to the right of the assessment. We went through and got some more of those filled out yesterday though. And if you guys do not have access to this, so we do have a template for it. Let me go ahead and grab this link. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the template in chat. And just for everybody hopping in, welcome to the party, pal. GRC Mafia. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and start jumping into this. If you guys have any questions, drop that in chat. I'll try to keep an eye on that. And yeah, let's do it. So one of the very first ones, I think we could go ahead and knock out the likelihood and impact ratings real quick. So lockout, so account lockout or loss, business operation disruption, incorrect password attempts, system errors, or malicious activity. So if we lose an account itself. That's very similar to the account takeover compromise, which is 2 more rows above. So we'll go ahead and we'll probably have pretty similar for that too. So lockout and everything else is going to be the likelihood of a low, And then also, but it's going to have a high impact rating. I think that's going to go right alongside with the account takeover at the top there. But I'm putting it as a 2 and not a 3. Let me zoom in a little bit more too. And so like what we've been doing up to this point is we go over to the third sheet, likelihood and risk values. We take a look at some of the descriptions here for the ratings. And then also we have our nice color-coded table here. And so I just want to go through these real quick. We should be able to. And then if you guys have anything else that's not already on here that you want us to add, then go ahead and drop that as well. If you have any other recommendations. That's what we're going to continue doing throughout the series, is just adding more to it and just trying to identify the risk. All right, so then like the likelihood for insider threat. Now, this is also, like I've said throughout the risk register, taking into account the business itself is pretty important, and understanding the business. So like the insider threat portion, the primary issue would be like a board member or otherwise. And so although that's likely, I would still say that's unlikely. And so again, if we take a look at the third sheet over here, we could see for the likelihood. So error, accident, or active nature is highly unlikely to occur or occurs less than once every 10 years. So I'm probably going to put a 1 for the likelihood because I don't like putting 0. And then just because I find that to be very unlikely for us to have an insider threat per se. And then also the other benefit is that there's not really any, we don't work with sensitive information either. So worst case scenario, it would be a situation where like one of our streams, like let's say somebody's supposed to stream or something like that. And, you know, that affects operations when that doesn't actually occur, in which case then we would just go into incident response and have somebody like myself or somebody else take it over. Now the impact itself, that's going to be lower, I would say. So we do have some of the different potential consequences being like data loss or exfil, financial loss, operation disruption, reputational damage. I'm going to mark that a little bit lower just because, again, like we have version controls, we have access controls and so forth. So the files should be okay. Let me go ahead and double check the list here. And so I'm going to probably throw it in between 2 and 5. So like 2 on the impact of threat events is going to be limited adverse effect. And then 5 is going to be a serious adverse effect on organizational operations. So I'm probably going to list that at like a 4. And I'll probably go with a 5 for seriousness, because there's also, you know, something such as like, what if we have an insider threat that's like sending out phishing emails or utilizing our services platforms for malicious intent as well. That could be a bad thing too. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that as a 5. Now let's go through and double check here. Perfect. All right. Oh, and let me move the camera here. Kind of blocking that. All right, and then the next one we have here, misconfiguration of access controls. So data loss, exfil. So misconfiguration is definitely going to be a big one for sure. That's probably like a very, very common thing that occurs. And then this is in particular with access controls. So that could be misconfiguration on our Discord server, our email, our file storage, multiple different, areas that could be lacking and not be set up properly. Now that has the potential for data loss, reputational damage, operational disruption. So that could be caused by human error, system vulnerabilities, lack of change management. And so lack of change management is a serious thing to consider as well. So what if somebody leaves and we don't modify that, or some responsibilities are taken away from an individual or something along those lines, and we don't get that updated. So then the likelihood of that occurring. So misconfiguration of access controls, I'm going to go ahead and mark that a little bit lower as well, because that's the main thing that we do have, although we need to have policies and procedures on that. That is something that we take very seriously up to this point. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that at maybe a 3. So there's definitely, I would say that there's definitely a possibility of it occurring within the next 10 years. So at some point, it's likely that we're going to mess something up with access controls, and somebody's going to have access to something they're not supposed to, or otherwise. And I think that's a reasonable likelihood there. And then the impact level, again, that's another hard one to also do, because it's talking about, misconfiguration of access controls. One of the biggest concerns with this is that this could have an absolutely massive impact. And so I'm probably going to rate this pretty high, just because if we mess up something on permissions, for Discord, or maybe our email provider or otherwise, then that could have some serious impact potential, especially if a malicious actor did actually gain access to that. So I'm going to mark that at an 8, where we could recover, but it's just going to have significant impact. Welcome to the Party Pal PBO. I also see AB Showtime popping in chat. Sounds like a job for the CISO there. Yeah, right. All right, so now we're on line 10 here. So lack of regulatory compliance. Hey, PBO, what family group are you streaming for tonight? So lack of regulatory compliance, this is a big one, especially for a lot of the different businesses and so forth. This is a big area of risk, just regulatory compliance. There's so many different things that follow underneath this. Legal is going to be heavily involved with that, I would hope, if you have that ability. But there's a lot of different regulations to follow in industry. So fines, reputational damage, financial loss, operational disruptions. How would it occur? Failure to implement required controls, changes in regulations. I'm also going to add something else too. So it does say failure to implement required controls. I kind of feel like we should add something else though too, because failure to implement controls is one thing, but then also failure to, changes in regulations is another thing, but also another important thing is not staying up to date. So this could also happen with, just not being informed. And I feel that that's a little bit different there, just because, regulations change, but then what if there's, some other random regulation that we have to follow and I have no idea about it. I've never heard of it. I didn't know we had to follow that or otherwise. And then bam, we get hit with a fine just because we didn't even know. So then the likelihood, so especially being a small business with no legal team or anything like that really, that's going to be a little bit more likely. So of course we consult and so forth. However, I think that's going to be a little bit more likely that, and we need to take that even more serious because this could have quite an impact as well. So I'm probably going to have this as like a 5 for like, especially regarding business operations, because that's going to have like a severe impact. And then I'm probably going to list this at a higher rating as well, of like almost an 8, because if we don't know that we're supposed to be following a particular regulation or otherwise, and then we break that and then we get fined or otherwise, then that would be a really bad situation. That could be pretty significant on operations. Yeah, and so like I was saying earlier, PBO streams tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And tonight he's talking about supply chain risk management. So SR family group. Bam, GRC Mafia. So I have that rating put in here as well. And so you could see like these numbers are coming together for the total value amount. So for an example, the lack of regulatory compliance is a 40. So then we can come over here to the sheet 3 and take a look here, and we could see, oh, there's 40. So an impact level of 5 and the likelihood of a 5, the impact of an 8. And then that's going to throw us into this orange category here. So that's going to be higher up on that priority list of things to consider, to research, to try to reduce that level of risk. So that would be a situation where once we come down to this risk item, then we would be like, okay, what do we need to do to reduce this? And like a large portion of that is going to be like contacting a lawyer and being like, what regulations do we need to be following? Just to try to, get ahead of the ball, ahead of the curve there. All right, so then the next item here, so fraudulent business dealings. I think this one's pretty narrow. So financial loss, reputational damage, legal issues. Some of the different ways that it could happen is misrepresentation, bribery, and corruption. So this also has a potential, of course, and that's one of the biggest things with doing the risk register is you want to outline everything that you can think of that could go wrong. And so although this is, I would say, unlikely, this is still definitely something that we need to plan for and we need to try to prevent and just reduce. So there's a lot of things that coincide with this. There's so many different ways around it. So, just making things clear on like who has the ability to go into business dealings, also having multiple people. So like Study GRC, we have our board, and so any organizationally wide type of decision making or otherwise gets a board vote itself. And so I'm going to go ahead and drop this in here. So the fraudulent dealings portion, I think the likelihood is still pretty low, but there is a potential for that too. And so I'm going to go ahead and put like maybe, let's say a 3, because I mean, what if we also have like volunteers or otherwise? Like there's a lot of different ways that could go. So the likelihood of it occurring over 10 years, it's unlikely to occur once a year, but it's likely to occur once every 10 years at a level 3. So then we're going on to the actual impact. So what kind of an impact could that have? And so this is also kind of vague at the same time. So fraudulent business dealings, like that kind of depends on the circumstance. And so one of the important things with this is you always have to go with the worst case. So you have to think like, okay, what's the worst case scenario, the worst level of impact that could occur from this? And so like fraudulent business dealings, like there's some pretty bad stuff. So yeah, I'm going to probably rate that pretty high as well at like an 8, just because of like the financial loss capability, reputational damage, legal issues, that all could have a pretty large impact if, worst case scenario could occur. All right, and then moving on to the next item here. So item 12, so loss of key personnel. This is also a very real one too. So disruption of operations, loss of expertise, difficulty in maintaining momentum, resignation, illness, retirement. So the likelihood of that occurring. So one of the issues would be, having a single person who's responsible for multiple large areas of operation. And so like myself right now, I'm streaming 5 days a week. And so, if something happened to me, of course we have backup, we have other people who could fill in and so forth. But also moving forward, like in the future and so forth, if we have multiple people and, somebody, God forbid they have a car accident or even if their internet went out or otherwise, that still has disruption of operations. And so that's another thing we have to plan for. And also that's where like cross training would come in to ensure that we could even step in to where we even have somebody to backfill that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this probably in that 3 bracket as well, to where I would say that's unlikely to occur, but it's going to occur eventually, like within the next 10 years, but it's unlikely once a year. And the reason for that is just because up to this point, I haven't had any issues myself, and I love doing all of this. So there's that level of reliability there, but then also like the impact's going to be kind of high there as well. So I'm going to probably put that at like a 6 because that could still have some pretty adverse effects, because this is also a situation where like if I'm gone, like if I disappear, never to be seen again, then that could have some pretty large impact as well. I'm rating a little bit lower because I've also set up such things to where, for continuity in the fact that like, keep things running. So let's see here. And then also even taking into account other people. And so I'm thinking worst case scenario at this time. And then this next one's a platform dependency, loss of community engagement, disruption of operations, difficulty in transitioning to a new platform. So like a good example of this would be our Discord server. So we have multiple platforms that we stream to, but our Discord server is really our one and only outside of our live streams. And although that's great and everything else, we do have that platform dependency. Another example would be our streaming software. So like right now we use Restream. And so Restream is, the only thing that we use to stream with. If something happened to Restream regarding like their systems going down or some type of regulatory issue or whatever occurs and we're not able to utilize that service anymore, then we would have to rapidly find another option. Without Restream, we would not be able to stream right now. And it would be a situation where like we have to go with another similar partner, a similar platform and so forth, and rapidly deploy that in order to take that over. So that's another thing where, like having that business continuity, disaster recovery section as well is important. So then platform dependency, I'm going to go ahead and put that likelihood. So although I do find that likelihood to be a little bit lower, it would have a pretty big impact as well. So like I'm actually going to probably put this more at like maybe a 4, just because we've already had issues with Restream, for an example, and there's also other platforms that we rely on. So we're streaming to 4 different services, and then also we only have that Discord server for Steady GRC outside of the stream. So of course we have like our website with a contact form and so forth, but that Discord server, if anything did happen to it, then we would be at a loss. And then we would have to rapidly try to figure out another option and then try to figure out who was even in the Discord server otherwise, because also Discord doesn't have very good options for export and migration. So that impact is also going to be relatively high. I'm probably going to put it at like a 6 because I don't feel that it's going to shut down the business, but I could definitely see it having a pretty large impact. Ben Tech mentions a coworker walked in and said it was raining. I've been in my office all morning. Yeah. It's probably snowing here. I just haven't looked outside. Oh, yeah. We got this BC thing down with the GRC Mafia. Welcome to the party, pal, Bentech. And then also I see malware Trenny popping in as well. Yeah, and no worries. Just no worries on anybody being late or otherwise. That's one of the reasons why we record. And so we're just going through, we're going to finish out these impact ratings. And then I want to start filling out some of that other information as well to start knocking these ones out. And then we still have another 4 streams for this. So we have 8 in total. This is part 4. And so moving forward next week, so next Monday and Tuesday, we'll be working on adding more line items to this as well. And then going through and doing the impact and so forth. All right, so let's see. So then content quality issues. This is something I take very seriously. So this is a great recommendation. I'm pretty sure somebody in chat stated this one. But so content quality issues, loss of credibility, decreased community trust, negative brand perception. They could occur from inaccurate information, outdated content, poor presentation. And so, yeah, this is something that I really try to prevent. But of course, that, you know, it's still going to happen from time to time. There was actually a thumbnail recently where I had neglected to update the... So underneath our speaker thumbnails, we typically have their LinkedIn, you know, like /IN/ and then their name for their LinkedIn underneath their profile photo for the speakers. And so there was one recently where it just wasn't that big of a deal. And so we didn't even update it, but it was the wrong one. And so like that is something where, you know, technically it's inaccurate information, but we accepted that risk. So, but also this can go into a lot of different things, and it's the content quality issues. So that's like, you know, what if I just went through and just ran something through AI and was like, oh, here you go. You know, this is a complete walkthrough for blah, blah, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, then it has misinformation in it. You know, it hallucinated. There's a lot of different ways that this could work out, which is also why AI is a tool and not a replacement. So I'm going to probably mark this, you know, probably around a 3, because I do find this likely that, you know, we're going to mess something up. This does not relate to, you know, purposely or maliciously done. This could be a complete accident. So like we just didn't know any better, or, you know, somebody else who's, you know, making the thumbnails or something, or filling in the YouTube descriptions, you know, and it just doesn't go through a proper review process. Now the impact itself, I'm going to rate a little bit higher at like a 6. And we could double check over here as well. So I may lower that a little bit. So we can see here at a 5, the threat event could be expected to have a serious adverse effect on organizational operations. And then 8 would be the threat event could be expected to have a severe or catastrophic adverse effect on organizational operations. So I'm throwing it in between that, just because it also depends. There could be situations where it could have a significant impact. And like one such example would be just, you know, it could be just some minor typo or the wrong information on a thumbnail or something along those lines. But like one of the biggest issues that I would have regarding this is, you know, that brand reputation and perception there. Because then what if, you know, we get new people every single video, every single live stream, and all the time. And I think that's great. And so if that's like the first thing that they see, then that could be a pretty negative experience. And that could have some serious impact level. So, yeah. And then there's also this next one. So lack of community moderation. So toxic behavior, spam, disruption, disruptive activities, damaged community environment. So that could occur with insufficient moderation resources, lack of clear guidelines, ineffective moderation tools. And so this likelihood, I'm going to probably put a little bit lower. So I'm going to put that at like a 2. And, we have multiple different moderators that have the ability to act upon things. Also, like up to this point, we've had a pretty good experience, actually. So we haven't really had too much of an issue. That's one of the reasons why we have like our Discord server so locked down like it is. But even in YouTube and so forth, every single time we have moderators and community and so forth. And I feel like we're at least, business casual to an extent most of the time. Oh, wow. PPO's getting snow. Welcome to the party, pal. Yeah, we probably have a couple of feet outside right now. Oh, yeah, and Viper also states that they have a couple months before touching grass. I don't mind the snow too much. So then the impact for lack of community moderation, I think that's going to be a little bit lower on the charts as well. So, I think one of the worst case scenarios, I'm probably going to put that at like a 4. I'm putting that a little bit higher just because if something did occur, that could still have some level of impact on the community. And so, if something did occur that, it took like 8 hours or days for us to respond to, we just overlooked it, we didn't realize it, that could have some serious consequences. And then also it depends on what it is as well. There may be people, like if our server gets spammed, we do have automated systems in place to take care of that. But if those systems did fail to do so, then that could make people leave as well, especially depending on like what it is. So there's a lot of different things to consider. Dependence on external partners. I think that's really, I just almost threw my mouse across the room. So the dependence on external partners, I think that's really similar to the other one that we were doing here. So let's see. So loss of key personnel, regulatory, content quality, platform dependency. Yeah, so like we have platform dependency right here, but then we also have dependence on external partners. That is a little bit different though. So like partners' financial difficulties, changes in strategy, termination of partnership. So we have official, unofficial partnerships already. We are also in the process of onboarding sponsorships and so forth as well. And so I would kind of flow this into both of those. So like looking at this, so disruption of operations, loss of resources, difficulty in meeting community needs, partners' financial difficulties, changes in strategy, and termination of partnership. So this is also a difficult one to try to rate as well. There's a lot of different ways this could go. I've also heard, especially regarding like sponsorships and so forth, that's why you have agreements. But, you still have people who, who just can't do it, or they want to, cancel it earlier or otherwise. There's also other potential conflicts here as well. So changes in strategy, for an example. So I'm going to go back over here and we'll take a look at this. So for the likelihood, so error, accident, or active nature is unlikely to occur or occurs less than once a year, but more than once every 10 years. I think that's probably about right. So I think this is going to fall lower on the scale. I may put this just at like a 3, just one more higher, just because we are new to this. So our company is still very immature, and we're still figuring everything out. We're also onboarding new partners and sponsors and everything else. And so I'm going to probably mark that at like a 3 because it's more likely to occur, but it's probably not going to occur more than once a year. So now for the impact itself, that's also could be a hard evaluation as well. So if I come back over here, we can see this chart here. So it could have serious adverse effects on organizational operations. The threat could be expected to have a severe or catastrophic adverse effect. I'm probably going to put it right in this like maybe 6 area, in between 5 and 6, because it's going to have a severe. It's going to have a serious to severe impact level potential. However, it's not going to be a situation where, you know, the organization shuts down because of it. So I'm going to probably put that at like a 6 impact level, because that's still very serious, reputation and everything else too. But it's not going to be the end of it. All right. And then now we can, here in a moment, we can start going through. We're a little over halfway through, but now we'll start working on like this risk response strategy, actions requirement to implement, and then also risk owners as well. Let's see here. So I'm just catching up on chat here real quick. Yeah, and welcome to the party, pal, Zanel. So I hope you were able to get that figured out inside of the Discord server. Let me know if there was any other issues. Welcome to the party, pal. All right, so I do see a couple questions here. So Bentech asks, is it safe to put a redacted GRC report into AI and ask it to organize it report better for you, as long as the company info and or worker names contact info is not listed? If not, what's appropriate? That's actually a really important thing, because most people don't ask that question, they just do it. There is a way too much information on there, and then also the way that you go through and redact the information is pretty important as well. So like it's kind of disappointing to say, but if you just go through and you just like, I don't know, use a notepad or paint to go through and cover up text, that's not going to necessarily completely remove it. But then also, like, even the different levels of risk and the risk ratings to the organization is typically considered sensitive. So businesses don't really want to be sharing, or should be sharing, what their vulnerabilities are. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why you should not take a GRC report and just throw it into AI. Now, of course, it's going to depend on what type of report you're working with. And then also maybe your organization has something, but it is not recommended. So if anything, you want to go through and really moving me around. Yeah, if anything, you want to go through and, double check with your organization, see if you can line up your own internal AI of some sort, or sections of it or otherwise, but typically not something you want to do. I would not rely on just like, oh, well, we redacted part of it. Because like even with this risk register, most of this would be considered sensitive, because you don't want to just air out your dirty laundry to the general public. All right, let's see here. All right. So then this other one, sorry if I have already mentioned this, but is this spreadsheet built using a certain framework or just best practices? This framework, so this particular template is based off of the 837 and 830. So, and you could see that on sheet number 3. So this is all based off of the NIST documents for it. And we did a video on that as well. Yeah, and also Brexy mentions, I would not say it's appropriate unless you're using an enterprise version of AI that your company authorized you to use. Correct. Yeah, and that's like a recap of the situation as far as like throwing a report into AI. Like, I would highly recommend not to do that unless you have an actual authorized version of AI that you're allowed to do that to. There's also like GRC tools that have AI built in to assist with some of that as well. But yeah, don't just like that. That's like a form of like shadow IT level and even malicious level of activities when you're just taking like a sensitive report and throwing it into like your own OpenAI, Chat GPT or otherwise. I believe it was Sony that ended up losing software because of that. If I remember correctly, it was Sony, where one of their developers had thrown code into OpenAI, into ChatGPT, and their code got thrown into the learning model. Oh yeah, and B-Dubs over here is saying run with Copilot. Copilot, it's safe. It's from Microsoft. The ending keynote at Wild West Mile High will be available hopefully within the next couple months. It looks like it took like maybe 3 or 4 months for the Deadwood ones to drop, and I'm really excited for that because the ending keynote was all about the AI risk and talking about Copilot as well, and also where a lot of these are issues. Yeah, and I also see this mentioned as well. I don't think I've mentioned this yet. So we need a stream on best practices, ethics using AI and GRC. Yeah, so like that ending keynote is really good. There's a couple different videos and resources out there as well, but we could definitely take a look at one of the pieces of feedback we got from like, I believe it was one of the videos last week where a few different people were asking for AI security videos. So although it's becoming common and so forth, there's so much out there. Also, like a really good resource is like NVIDIA has their own courses now as well that are freely available. They have paid ones, but they also have like the free intro. Even though AI is taking off to a large extent and so forth, it's not like that's going to be the only thing that's available. So Brexy mentions there are 2 versions of Microsoft Copilot. One is tied to the enterprise and the other is a public version. Don't use public version on anything you do with corporate data. Yeah, that's a public service announcement. And it's the exact same thing with ChatGPT. There's an enterprise version where you actually have like an actual business agreement with, and then there's also Gemini as well that does the exact same thing where it's 2 different models. So one is designed to where it's not supposed to be using your data for anything. You send it information and it just pulls from its archive. Whereas, with the free versions and the public versions, it actually learns from that information. And they're also not tuned. There's customization and all kinds of other things that go in with that as well. All right, let's see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a look here. All right, so also down here at the bottom, we have, so these are the different sections that we're going to look at. So risk response strategy, actions required to implement, and the risk owner. So these are the 3 that we're going to be considering here. So risk strategy, 1 or more options to address the risk. All right, and then actions required, activities that will be carried out in order to accomplish the risk response strategy. So this is like mitigation. So like what's recommended to reduce this level of risk here. And then what are the actual actions that need to be taken? Let's see. All right, and so we had filled this one in for this line item. Let me go ahead and, I think I could lock this in maybe. So I want to freeze this row. All right, since it's merged, it's not going to let me do it, So go figure. All right, so this second one here, so data deletion or removal of file system is the one that we're going to work with. So loss of business critical data, operational disruption, recovery cost, end user error, malicious actor, software malfunction. So what we stated for that one is regular backups, a business continuity plan, a disaster recovery plan, version control, access control, and MFA. So then, what would be the actual actions here? So then we need implement, so develop, so proper policy management. So that's one of it. Regular implement. Implement backup schedule. Enforce version control. And MFA. And then, so that would follow under two different directors. So CTO for Chief Technology Officer, and then also the CISO for Chief Information Security Officer. And yes, straight facts. So that message from Brexy was a PSA. All right, now let's go ahead and knock out the next one here. So lack of disaster recovery. So extended operational downtime, data loss, financial loss, reputational damage. The causes would be from like power loss, data loss, inability due to physical event, lack of proactive approach. And so this one's a total of 30, which is pretty significant. All right, so, and one of the key things here is lack of disaster recovery. It's not talking about disaster recovery, it's talking about the lack thereof. So what would be our strategy around this? I mean, I think this would largely have to do with, just implementing the disaster recovery stages, obviously. So I'm going to once again go through and say, proper policy management. So proper policy management, we also, and so this is lack thereof of disaster recovery, causing us to have a higher delay time for recovery. So like proper policy management, and then we could also probably put something along the lines of like one of the previous, that previous one was talking about regular backups and version controls, but we also, and so like the policy management flows into multiple different things. So there also needs to be like a call list. So like a contact list. Contact list, org chart. Some of the different actions to take would be to implement implement game plans, playbooks, implement playbooks for recovery. We need to go through, and so we need to do like the different playbooks for recovery, but then also that's where like business impact analysis would come in for businesses. So we realize what could occur and everything else as well, what kind of an impact it's going to have on the org. So that could be beneficial to realize like, okay, we don't have this, we don't have that kind of thing as well. That's going to largely follow underneath the CISO. This next line item here is going to be for automation process failures. So that's a relatively new thing that we've done. This we have marked as a lower impact, but we have it as a higher likelihood. So lack of event promotion, outdated community calendar, impact, potential impact on brand reputation. So, and the ways that that could occur is through platform failure, lack of failover, a DDoS attack, or misconfiguration of automations. So even with a lower impact, we still need to take this into account. And so this is also where having something along the lines of like a separation of duties. And so I say that, so separation of duties, but then also the main reason I position that is because we need to have more than one person reviewing and overlooking those projects as well to ensure that they're set up properly, but then also, just to reduce the level of potential likelihood. So if we have multiple eyes on it, then it's less likely that it's going to do something wrong, hopefully. And so like the separation of duties, that's where we could have it set up like in our policies and procedures where like, okay, we have somebody who builds them, but then we need somebody else to review them before they're enabled. Because these accounts, these automations are actually linked to our social media. They're linked to various different company tools and so forth, in which case that could have a negative impact. And having a separate person who can review and then actually enable that, rather than just one person who would go through and do the whole process, I think that would be one way around that. And to also reduce that misconfiguration. There's not very much that we could really do about the DDoS attack, just largely because it's a third-party platform that we don't have that kind of control over. So that would be something on them. It's the exact same thing. So like lack of failover, it would be too costly for us to go through and have a complete backup option on the side. That, the automations aren't of that level of importance to where if we went without it for a few days, or, we had to find another option over a short period of time, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And we do have failover, so we get notified and so forth in case if something doesn't work. So separation of duties and verification throughout process. All right, and so here we need to line out So then here we're outlining like what are the actual actions that need to be required here. So we would need to line out like a separate individual, a separate person who would review and enable automations. All right, let me double check chat here. Yeah, not yet, B-dubs, not yet. B-dubs is thinking that, go ahead and start dropping different levels of risk that would fall underneath the VP. And one of these were, so like loss of a particular, role or otherwise. So let's see. All right. And so then this next one, okay. Yeah, and so that's going to be for the automations portion. And so this one would probably also fall under, this would be somewhere in between CTO and CISO as well. Those roles do work closely together. However, this isn't really cybersecurity. So it wouldn't really be on the CISO as much. It's not really information security per se. So this would probably be more on that CTO, at least for them to figure out like who's going to do it and, implement these changes. They're the risk owner for that. Now, this next one is account takeover compromise. So brand reputation, data loss, exfil, legal issues, operational disruption. So that could be caused by weak passwords, phishing, malware, credential stuffing, and lack of MFA. So we have that rated at a 24. And so what can we do about that, to reduce the account takeover compromise? Well, forcing MFA. So MFA is going to be one of the big ones. So forcing MFA, awareness training would be another one. So awareness training. So we have awareness training, and then also antivirus software and enforcing strong passwords. Those are a couple other things there too. So we're trying to take that, what caused the consequence from occurring, and we're trying to find the broad solutions for those. So MFA, awareness training, antivirus, and strong passwords. All right, so enforce MFA, which we already do. Every single platform I join, I immediately go through and enforce MFA for all users. So enforce MFA and strong passwords. And strong passwords. Obtain and deploy antivirus. Now, this is also where it gets difficult, though, too, because so this is also where it gets a little bit difficult, too, because we had previously talked about how Study GRC is a small business and we are a bring your own device. And therefore, even if we wanted to deploy antivirus, B-dubs over here could say, oh, no, I don't want that. I don't want McAfee on my computer. Who do you think I am? So there could be a level of pushback as well. And then also that's one of the downsides with running a bring your own device. Now, there are workarounds with that. One such option may be, like PBO's talked about in the past with like edge computing, the thin clients, which I think is really fascinating with AWS. Those are actually lower cost than you would imagine, in which case what happens is that you have this little box that connects to the internet, and then it's actually displaying the virtual machine in the cloud. And I've heard really good things about that. And so that would be a really good option as well, like for remote work. And you'll typically see that in more like secure environments, I would probably say. However, I think that is still a very good option, like even for a small business, because it's still reasonably priced. It's still to the extent that a small business could do that. But then also that level of security that you get out of that. So reducing the risk level just by having, although, there still may be a bring your own device, then at least they're utilizing the company's resources and so forth on a device that you can monitor, on a device that you do have virus protection on and malware and so forth that you could, go through and manage. Welcome to the party, pal, Sierra. Yeah, so secure access edge, that's kind of cool. That sounds neat. I'm not even sure about that, to be honest with you. I think you're referring to the thin clients and so forth. But yeah, I find it really fascinating. So I'm not familiar with that term actually at all, but I've definitely looked into it a little bit, and I find that really interesting how you could do the access the machines remotely. So you'll see that like even with CMMC and so forth, where businesses may just do like an enclave on AWS, where all of their contract information is stored in the cloud, and they just access it via, you could do it via a web browser even, or through one of those thin clients on site. So it's definitely kind of interesting, and I think it's definitely a benefit. Oh, I'm sure that SASE is on the CompTIA 701 exam. I'm sure it is, and I don't doubt that one bit. There are about another 850-ish other terms on that exam as well. So so we're coming to an end here. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here in a moment. So we're streaming 5 days a week. Now, outside of our Thursday meeting, we're only sticking around for about an hour or so. And so this is now part 4 of the Risk Register. We will be back to this next Monday at 11 a.m. Central Time. Now, a couple different things I want to mention is, tomorrow night, we're meeting up with Fleetus. So at 6 p.m. Central. So tomorrow night, we're meeting with Fleetus. Tomorrow, so Fleetus is doing an entire thing about like what is expected from entry level and so forth, like within the first 90 days kind of thing. Like what should you expect getting in the entry level role, and how to excel at that. That's going to be a really interesting one. And then also on Thursday night, which is our primary meeting at 6 p.m. Central, we'll be talking about the cynical high trust. And so I know a couple of people that I was talking to at Wild West about that as well. And so that should be quite an interesting presentation too. And of course, those videos will be, open for Q&A and open stage and so forth as well. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time, we'll actually be going over the GRC Let's Get Technical, which is what we do on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central. So tomorrow we're just going over, I wanted to start everything very, very basic and fundamental. And so we're going to go over like the different components of a computer, like what makes a computer actually work and what are they called? How do they fit together kind of thing? And just kind of touch on that just a little bit, just so you have a little bit more of an idea of some of these devices in our world here. Yeah, and like B-Dubs mentions is make sure you hit that like button. If you got some value out of it, you want to see more of this content and so forth, definitely appreciated. And then that also just spreads the word a little bit more as well. Let's see here. I think that was it. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, just let me know. We do have our Discord server, which is going to be like one of the best options to go with. I'm going to go ahead and stick around just for a moment and make sure. And then, like I said, we'll be back again tomorrow. And then we'll start working on Risk Register again next Monday. So every Monday and Tuesday. Yeah, no worries, Sarah. Thanks for hopping in and so forth. I appreciate it. That's one of the biggest benefits of having everything recorded. So yeah, anybody can go back through at a later time. We're also going to work on putting all of these into their own playlist as well. So we're doing this 8-part series for the Risk Register. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you guys do have additional questions or otherwise, then go ahead and catch us in Discord. And I will see you guys tomorrow. GRC Mafia.